Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Today inshallah we'll try to wrap up our discussion in zakah. We have lots of contents to cover. But the most important is whatever content, whatever is covered, if we don't finish the entire thing, whatever is covered that we know, we have a good understanding of it, inshallah. And this is something that was connected to every one of us, whether we pay zakah or we receive zakah. So keep the class any interactive, inshallah. Right? So we just have a few words, we recap a little and then we'll continue. Right? In calculating zakah, they had There's 3 steps in calculating zakah. Alright? I think I had a face so. Right? There are just 3 steps in calculating zakah. Right? The first step, we list all of our zakatable assets. Last class we spoke about zakatable assets. We list them? Right. Zakatable assets. Right? And we total the zakatable assets. Right? Second thing is we do what? We list all of the liabilities. Today inshallah we spoke about liabilities last class? Long-term loan, short-term loan, this, that. Alright. So what? You have your liabilities here. Inshallah we'll discuss more the liabilities. Alright. So first step, second step. The third step, we minus the second from the first. We minus what? The liabilities from zakatable asset. And you'll get what you call net zakatable assets. For example, your zakatable assets are $100,000, the value. Right? Understand here, we're not just speaking about cash. Whatever is the zakatable asset, right? We put a monetary value to it. Cash, that is not a problem. A person has what? Jewelry, the monetary value. A person has what? Items for trade, the monetary value, the market value of that. So we have what? $100,000 zakatable asset or assets. And this side now we have what? The liabilities, right? Like loans and bills and whatever. We'll go into that today inshallah a little more. So you list all of your liabilities. You total it. It equates $60,000. $60,000, right? So you take away what? 60 from $100,000. We get a figure of $40,000. $40,000 is our net zakatable asset or assets. Now we look here now. This is just the second stage. Before we go to the third stage or the third step, does that person have to pay zakah? Yes or no? That figure, that net zakatable asset, that amount, if it equates the nisab or is over the nisab, yes, he would have to pay zakah. We spoke about what was the whole aspect of nisab last class, right? And as we mentioned, we use what? The gold nisab. So the gold nisab presently is approximately $37,000, right? So our net zakatable assets here, what? $40,000, which is above the nisab. So if we have what? 39,000 also, that is what? Zakat. A person will have to pay zakat. He has 37,000, yes, he has to pay zakat. Less than that, no zakat. Right? So this person has what? $40,000 as his net zakatable assets. He has to pay zakat. Why? Because it is above the value of the nisab. How much he has to pay now? Right? That is the third stage. So a person having what? A net zakatable asset of less than the nisab, he doesn't need to go to the third stage. Why? Because he doesn't have to pay zakah. He doesn't have to pay zakah. If he has less than what the value of the nisab, then khalas, no zakah. He doesn't have to pay zakah. But understand carefully, we mentioned about the 3 groups of people. Those who what? Zakah is obligatory upon them. They are the payers of zakah. Those who what? Receive zakah, they are recipients of zakah. And there's a third category. Those who what? Zakah is not obligatory upon them, but at the same time they cannot receive zakah. So this second step in calculating, a person what? His net zakatable assets are less than the nisab. All we can deduce from this is what? He does not have to pay zakah. Right? Now, a person what? Zakah not being obligatory upon a person does not necessarily mean that he can receive zakah. No. Right? And we discussed that. Right? Normally forms that we print out, some people, some masjid, they use it to what? To see if a person can receive zakah. No, that form is not for that. That form is for to see if a person what has to pay zakah and how much he has to pay. These zakah forms that we have. Right? So the third stage now, how much that person has to pay. Simple. He multiply that net zakatable asset by 2.5%. 1/40th. That is why we use the figure 40,000. 1/40th is what? 1,000. 1/40th from what? 40,000 is 1,000. Simple. They multiply by 0.025. Not 0.25. 0.025. And you'll get the amount that they have to pay in zakah. Alright? The amount would be 1,000. Right? So that person would pay zakah how much? 1,000. Alright? Now, I'm not too sure where we stopped last class, but when we speak about what? Zakatable assets, listen, we have a long list, right? If you look at both forms, the form from what? The Darul Ulum, the form that we have at the Jamia, you see what? A long list, zakatable, any asset, they have it under A, asset, L, liabilities. So now listen, all of what? This entire listing could be just summarized in what? Into 3 assets, right? Zakatable assets are actually what? Three types of assets. Gold, silver. Understand, we're not saying jewelry, right? Because they have platinum, which is more than that, but that is not zakatable, right? Gold, silver, whatever form, whatever fashion, you have it as what? As jewelry, you have it as ornament. You're using it, you're not using it, that doesn't matter. Once you're in the possession of gold and silver, that is a zakatable asset. And we mentioned in the last class how a person goes about finding what? The value of that. We use what? Weight. We use weight and we use what? Carat value. We don't use the price, how much is worth in the market. You don't look at craftsmanship, no. The weight of it and the carat value. So that the weight and the carat value are not going to change, but what will change is the price of the value of the gold itself. This is fluctuate. That's why you see what? The nisab fluctuated ever so often, because it reflects the world price, the international value of gold. Right? So this is the first listing. Right? Gold, silver. The second one is cash currency. It doesn't matter what you have it for, what you intend to do with it. You are the owner of what? Cash. You are the owner of what? Currency, local currency, foreign currency. That is zakatable. And not investing it, or just saving it, or keeping it for this. That is irrelevant. Once you are the owner of what? That is yours. It is in your ownership, your possession. You are the owner of what? Cash, currency. That is what? Zakatable. That is second listing. And the third listing, items for trade. Right? And we spoke last class on this topic. I teach them what? In different places. And sometimes I probably think that we already covered it, but items for trade, we did that last class. Commodities for trade, we did that. Right. Understand here. It has a specific definition. Commodities for trade. If I want to sell this mouse, I intend to sell this mouse or this phone, right? That doesn't make it a zakatable asset, right? A person, understand, how does a person acquire ownership of an item? Through what? Purchase. Through what? Inheritance. Through what? Gifting. Woman receives as what? Mahar, dowry. You have what? In lieu of what? A talaq, a khula. All these things, right? This is how a person becomes the owner of an item. We did this. Good, right? So a person, okay. An item for trade in zakah is that item a person, he acquires the ownership by purchasing and he intends resale. So if I purchase this phone with the intent of resale, it becomes a zakatable asset at source. Understand what is meant by at source? Come the 27th of Ramadan, this is our zakat anniversary we use it. Come the 27th of Ramadan, I still have this phone in my possession. I would need to put what the value of this phone as my zakatable asset. Why? It was an item purchased with the intent of trade. It is a zakatable asset. Alright? So this is a zakatable asset. Now if I purchase this item not for trade, other than trade, for my personal use, so I just purchase it. Whether what I am in need of it or not, that is irrelevant. Right? My intent was never for trade. Thereafter, you know what I decided to sell? To sell this item. Put up a sign for sale, start advertising it. Come 27th of Ramadan, this is not a zakatable asset. Why? Because at the time of purchase, my intent was not sale. Right? So now that is what? The third category. And you have, this is not a fourth category, but it is connected to what? Cash, and it's connected to what? Items for trade. What is this? These are receivable debts. Alright? When you say a person owe you, hey, this man owe me $10,000. How he owe you $10,000? If it is connected to what? Cash, meaning what? You lent him $10,000. Until now he hasn't paid, you made an arrangement, okay, pay within a year, right, or whatever. So you lent him $10,000. Come 27th of Ramadan, that is your zakatable asset. Right? But I don't have it in my possession. Khalas, that is a zakatable asset. Right? So you put $10,000. He owes you $10,000. That is a receivable debt. Why? Because you lent him this cash, $10,000. How else a person would owe you money? This man owing me $10,000, boy. How? I sell him some goods until now he hasn't paid. We're not complaining, but this is what? This is your customer, right? This man, what? He has what? $10,000 to me because of the sale of goods. This sale of goods here we're speaking about is what? Items for trade. The third listing. So I have a shop where I purchase item with the intent of trade, and a person, what? He purchases it, and I have arrangement after 90 days or 60 days or whatever. Right? So until now he hasn't paid. Come 27th of Ramadan, that is part of my zakatable asset. That is part of my zakatable assets. Right? Now, if I were to what? Sell my vehicle, my personal vehicle. That was I never intend to what? When I purchased that, my intent was not for trade, a personal item. But I decided to sell the vehicle. So I sold the vehicle, and the person what? He would pay within 6 months, within a year. Until now I haven't received that money. Right? Until now I haven't received that money. But that is a debt, a receivable debt. But that receivable debt now was due to what? The sale of a personal item, not an item for trade. Come the 27th of Ramadan, that is not part of my zakatable asset. That is not part of my zakatable asset. But listen, if the person happens to pay me, and I have that money in my possession, come the 27th of Ramadan, it is what? Zakatable. Why? It is on the second category, cash and currency.
So if it's let's say an item for trade, there's the receivable debt indefinitely, or like let me say we're supposed to be paid in a month time, and 5 years on the road still not be paid, and you're not expected to get it back.
Right, so now, okay, you have what you call bad debts, right? For example, what they give a person was his owing you money because of what? This one or two, this first scenario, second scenario. They lent him money or what? Due to the sale of a item for trade, right? So this person what? If he what? He cannot pay the debt, right? He's not able to pay the debt, right? That is not part of your zakatable asset. He is denying the debt. But what $10,000 is talking about? I can remember having $10,000 for you, boy. So he denies the debt, right? And you have no proof and evidence to what? To take him to what? To bring up the matter anyhow, right? So in these cases, a person says, listen, I just cannot pay the debt. In these cases, listen, it will not be part of your zakatable asset. Come 27th of Ramadan, you're not going to add it in your zakatable asset, right? But listen, if that person happens to pay, right, you would pay, when it happens what? If you happen to receive that money from that person, you would pay 2.5% of it. Upon receiving that amount, right, that 10,000, you would pay 2.5% from it. Right? And also, listen, sometimes you lend a person a huge amount of money, right? You lend a person in $3,000, $4,000, $100,000, right? And this man, he has the money, you make an arrangement within 1 year, 2 years, whatever. Come the end of what? Your zakatable yearly anniversary, but you have to pay zakat on that what? $200,000 I lend that man. I have to pay zakat on what? On that 300,000 I lend that man, right? And this man, sometimes what he paid in installment, he'll give you a $50,000, and then afterwards, a few months, he'll give you what? A next $50,000, and like that. But every year now, 27th of Ramadan, you have to pay how much? $300,000? No, you don't have to do that. If you want, don't put it in a zakatable asset, right? But understand it's zakatable, but don't check it here, right? Don't check it here as a zakatable asset. What you can do, every time he pays what? A $50,000, you what? Pay 2.5% of that. Right? Every time he pays what? A $25,000, you receive it, pay 2.5% of it. Right? It is zakatable, they pay it like that. And that probably easier.
You pay it right away as you receive it.
As you receive it, yeah. Yeah. Right, and we mentioned this, what? A person purchasing with the intent of lease. We mentioned that, right? Purchasing with the intent of lease, that is not a zakatable asset. A person, what he purchases any property, he purchases a building, vehicles with the intent of lease, with the intent of renting. Yes, you're going to get the income from that. That's business you're doing, right? But these vehicles and these what? Houses are not zakatable. Why? Because your intent is what? You purchase with the intent of leasing, renting. You didn't purchase with the intent of resale. Right? So even what? You purchase one vehicle with the intent of what? Resale, that is a zakatable asset. You purchase 20 vehicles with the intent of what? Renting them out, leasing them. Right? These 20 vehicles are not zakatable assets. Yes, the income that is received, the rental income, if it remains in your possession come the 27th of Ramadan, it is a zakatable asset, it's a cash. There's no actual question here. This is the last class, we're closing off.
I would like to get some more clarification on the third category.
On the third category items for trade, right? Oh, the third category, okay. Good, right? So very good. Clarification on the third category, that's coming up, but I don't know if we will reach that. I have what, 52 slides, we now on 20, right? And we did about 15, 16 the last class, right? So anyhow, as the questions come, good, we'll answer them. The third category, understand the third category? A person who what? If you're going to determine a person, right, if he has to pay zakah or not, all you're looking at is what? His zakatable assets. 1, 2, 3, and we have the receivable debts if it's connected to the second and third one. Alright? That is all you're going to look at. If a person has to pay zakah, you're not going to look at what? Anything else besides what? These 3 categories. Right? But the man living in what? He's driving a $500,000 vehicle. That is irrelevant. The house that he's living is what? Multi-million. That is irrelevant. Alright? His furniture what? Worth what? The value of my entire what? House and land and everything. That is irrelevant. Alright? That is irrelevant. It determines whether a person has to pay zakah or not. Right? As for a person what? Can he receive zakah? This third category, right? Doesn't have to pay, but can he receive zakah? What you look at? You look at both types of asset. A person has what you call zakatable assets, what we discussed just now, and what you call non-zakatable assets. What are non-zakatable assets? hey, everything else besides your zakatable asset. Those assets that are not for trade, those assets that are connected to your needs. Alright? You may not be in need of it, but connected to it is not for trade. For example, the house that you live in, the vehicle that you drive, the furniture, the appliance, right? All of these things, non-zakatable. You don't have it for trade. Right? That is connected to your needs. Right? So you don't have to pay zakah. But to receive zakah now, the ruling is what? If a person, he has non-zakatable assets, which are beyond his needs. The one connected to his needs, nothing wrong with that. When I say nothing wrong, there's no ruling on that. The non-zakatable assets that is connected to his needs, that has no ruling. But those non-zakatable assets that is not connected to his needs, it is beyond his needs, and that amount which is beyond his needs, the value of it equates the nisab or it in excess of the nisab, then that person cannot receive zakah. For example, a person has 2 houses, right? 2 houses. He lives in one house, and now and then he would what? When he go down in the village area where he has 2 houses then, forget what he do with the second one, right? He lives in one and he owns the next one. That's not for sale. So with regards to paying zakah, these are non-zakatable, so it has nothing to do with paying zakah. But this person now, can he receive zakah? When he check, it's less than the nisab, so he doesn't have to pay. But can he receive? No. This extra house, which is a non-zakatable asset, is beyond his needs and it is worth more than the nisab. So he cannot receive zakah. He cannot receive zakah. Right? Sometimes you see a person what? In an old house, this man real poor, right? But this man, he has what? Acres of land not using. If he is using the land, okay, it's connected to his needs, planting, connected to his needs. He has acres of what? Private land in his name, right? He owns the land. He's not utilizing the land. So now these are what? Non-zakatable assets beyond what? The needs of a person, which exceeds the value of the nisab. He cannot receive zakah. He said, listen, that man said, well, half of his land or 1 acre of the land, he have more money than you anyhow, and you're giving him zakah. No, he cannot receive zakah. You understand? Why? Because his non-zakatable assets, which are beyond his needs, it equals or exceeds the value of the nisab. Understand? The fuqaha, the jurors, they have what? Mentioned clearly, and they give examples, and from these examples we can see, a person has, for example, a library of books. He owns his entire library. The value of these books, it equals the nisab or exceeds the value of the nisab. And this person cannot read these books. That is my books, right? He can't read the books, right? He buy a whole library with books that he's not using, not connected to him, right? He doesn't even know the Arabic language, and he buys a whole library of Arabic books, and the value of which is, it equals the nisab or it exceeds the nisab. This is not connected to his needs. As opposed to a person who has what? Probably a library 10 times that size, right? And he what? Utilizes these books, right? He utilizes these books, right? So this is connected to his needs. The fuqaha, the jurors also mentioned, and we can relate to this also. A person has what? Wares in his house. I know if people still do it, but listen, they just pack away a whole. I know why people call it space saver. They just take up space. They don't save space. But anyhow, wares that they don't use at all, right? They don't use the wares, but just in that, it just stored there. The value of which is beyond either equates the nisab or beyond the nisab. So when a person checks now khalas, zakatable asset liabilities, he gets a net figure of what? Less than the nisab, or khalas, he doesn't have to pay zakah. But this person at the same time cannot what? Receive zakah. Why? Because his non-zakatable assets, which are beyond his needs, right? equals or exceeds the value of the nisab. And this is one category that what many people what? They don't know. Right? They don't know. The forms that we distribute at the Jamia, the forms at the Darul Ulum that they distribute, anybody else the zakah form, that is to check to see if what? You have to pay zakah or not. That is not a form to determine whether you can receive zakah. No. So sometimes you go a person, some of these zakah committees also, or you yourself, you're giving people zakah, what you'll ask them? You have the nisab, you can receive zakah. You don't know if he can receive zakah, and more than that, he doesn't even know that if he can receive zakah or not. Right? No, I don't have whatever the nisab is we're using gold or silver or whatever. Right? No, I don't have the nisab. Right? But you have a set of tools, understand here? And those tools, it equals the value of the nisab, or it exceeds the value of the nisab, and these tools are not connected to your profession. You're a teacher, you khalas, all this is a hobby for you, all these what power tools you have, people just like to buy tools. I mean, if you're using the tools, yes. So some people just like to buy tools, some people just like to buy books, some people just like to buy things, right? If it's connected to you, right, you utilize it, yes, it's part of your needs, but you're not utilizing it at all right? Some people what? Not men so much, but okay, women, they have what? A whole closet. They are waiting. The khalas is worn once, well, I can't wear it again. But you don't want to give it away. Right? So you have a whole closet that you're not using. Right? But yes, you are the owner of it. You're not even using it. Years will pass. Right? You're not using it. You're the owner of it. Right? These are non-zakatable assets, yes, but it is beyond your needs, and you look at the value of that. Right? So that is the third category. If you can get some water, it will be good. Normally. Alright, so that is the third category. I know we will get time to go to the third category, so good. Right? With regards to what? Stocks, have we mentioned what? Stocks and, okay, raw material. We did have raw materials, understand that? No? Right? Items for trade. We just mentioned what are items for trade, right? Which is the zakatable one. Now, raw materials, understand? Raw material, any item that finds itself in the final product is zakatable. Alright? Raw material, for example, a person making furniture. Alright? A person what making furniture, so you have what the lumber you purchase from the sawmill. Right? You'd have what? You'd have lumber that cut up, you'd have lumber that joined, you'd have lumber that sanded, you need semi-finished products that are. You just what? 27th of Ramadan, you take a snapshot your business. All these items. Obviously what? The lumber that is what? Cut already, it won't be the same value as the long one. Right? The one that is already mounted up. Each would have what? A different value. Right? Jazakallah khairan. Right? Each would have a different value. All of this what? These are zakatable assets. Not the final product only. Not the chair when you finish it or the cupboard when you finish it. Right? No. All of these items, once it's finished, it finds what? Its way in the final product. For example, what? A carpenter or how these people make furniture, what? The wood, the screw, the glue, the how you call it, the paint and the fabric that used to cover. All of these things are what? Zakatable. Alright? All of the things are zakatable. Things that doesn't find its way in the final product, non-zakatable. For example, what? The machinery, the equipment, the oil that you use for the machinery, these are not zakatable. The vehicle you use to transport it, that's not zakatable. Alright? The building that you use to house or that facility, non-zakatable. No fixed assets are zakatable unless what you trade in these assets. You buying machinery for the intent of resale. Alright? So all is what? Raw material are zakatable. Alright? Now you have what? In your business you have what? Stocks. Right? You have stocks in the business, yes. In the shop you have, in the warehouse you have, right? All of these are zakatable. They give what? The market value. You might have some stocks that they call dead stocks, meaning they take it long to sell, but listen, it's still for sale. It is what? Zakatable. Obviously, what? The user, the market value of it. Right? With dead stocks, what? It won't be the price as you had it before. It will be what? Right? The user market value. Right? Unless a person decides he's not going to sell it anymore. He's not going to sell it anymore. I'm going to just give it away to the poor. I'm going to give it to a person. I'm going to, right? Unless he decides that. But you can't say, no, I'm not selling that anymore. But you still have it in the shelf, boy. Right? It's the item for sale. Right? You have a paint shop. Plenty paint. Somebody answer that question. If somebody answer that question, I feel happy and I can move on with. Anybody answer that question? You have to pay. Once it is in your possession, once it is an item for trade, once it is an item for trade, it is a zakatable asset. Unless, you know what, I close down the shop, I'm not going to sell no paint again. Come, somebody answer that question. Yes. Right? You have 100,000 in the bank. You pay zakah on it this year. You leave it in the bank. You take it out. Next year what? You pay zakah on it. You want it in your possession. You pay zakah on it. Right? If it has sell at all, once it is an item, once you have it for sale, you purchase with the intent of sale and it remains like that. Unless you decide you're not going to sell it. If you decide that you're not going to sell it, it's not an item for trade anymore. It's not a zakatable asset. Alright? We're talking about, listen, we're talking about paint. Listen, those who deal in real estate, right? No, I say those who didn't buy what? Properties. You buy property with the intent of what? Resale. One property alone is what? By the millions, over $1 million, right? And you have multiple property. You know what? Until now, you don't have a cent in your pocket. Meaning what? You haven't sold anything, right? These are zakatable at source. Come the 27th of Ramadan, the value of the market value of each of these property, right? So that's why some person what? When they calculate now, his zakah is what? $500,000 or $2 million. He doesn't have that cash now, right? So okay, khalas. But this is a debt that he has. The moment he sells, he would pay. The moment that he would accumulate, he would pay. Right? Like a person, for example, what? A person cannot fast because of a chronic illness. We don't fast in this Ramadan coming up. Right? The laws are fasted. Do zakah this year. Anyhow, a chronic illness that prevents that person from fasting. That person not going to find better days in his life to fast. So that person would give what? Fidya. That person will have to pay fidya. Now the question arises now, that person cannot pay the fidya. Right? He doesn't have the wealth to pay the fidya. Does the fidya what? Drop off now? No. It's still a debt on that person. Whenever he gets, he would pay. Fidya is the same as sadaqatul fitr. The same amount of sadaqatul fitr. Right? A cut-off age, when Malakul Maut comes, that is the cut-off age. Understand? A person would only pay fidya when he cannot fast. Right? So he never used to pay fidya. Understand? When he used to fast, he never paid fidya. When you used to fast, you don't fast and pay fidya. Right? A person would only pay fidya when he cannot fast for the rest of his life. And this normally they give the example of a Sheikh Al-Fani, an old man, so old that what? Every single day of his life is getting older and weaker, and he's not going to find younger days or better days where he can fast. No, that will be like that every single day until he dies. So the moment he cannot fast, then that person will what? Because of his what? Weakness and old age, he would give fidya, right? A person has what? A chronic disease. When you say chronic, lifelong, right? Lifelong what? Disease or illness that would prevent that person from what? Fasting. The doctor would say, listen, you would have to live in this condition for the rest of your life. This medication, that. So that person would not find better days. He would give fidya. If he happens to find better days, khalas, he will do qada. But now he will do fidya, right? So that means that, listen, many times people ask a question, a pregnant woman does not have to give fidya, right? If she fears for her life or the life of her child, she's allowed to what? Delay the fast of Ramadan, right? Delay the fast of Ramadan, and she would make up for it in the future, right? She would make up for it anytime in the future. There's no fidya there. Come back to zakah. Fidya is what? 1.7 kg of wheat, the value of that. So that's why you see sometimes it differ, right? Sometimes what? Last about how much? $13, $14, $15 around there. I think last year was about how much? 18 around there. Listen, as I mentioned, you don't have to go and wait for what? We to print out something, right? Go and see, listen, 1.6 kg of flour, right? That is a fidya. That is per day, right? And understand that is minimum. So listen, if you give up $3 extra, one for that. Don't know what I said, right? If you give up $3, nothing wrong with that. So listen, you go in the grocery and you see what? Ibis and you see Lotus, they have what at 2 kg. Use that price, right? There's be a few dollars cheaper than that, right? Use that price. That's a fidya.
Give more but not less.
Huh?
Give more but not less.
You give more, not less, right? When you say what? That's the minimum amount, right? It doesn't mean, okay, you can't give out $2 more, $3 more. No. That's the minimum amount. Loans. A person take loan.
You have a loan to pay, like there is a loan to 5 years or something.
Right.
When is Ramadan?
Right, good. So we just put a pin on that. That would come on it. We just that on liabilities, right? We just wrapping up the what? Zakatable asset, right? That and liabilities, inshallah, we discuss that, the loans. We have what? Shares. Person, what he purchases shares. Understand, shares is not a separate listing in your zakatable asset. That come under what? Either come under cash or it come under what? Any items for trade. A person, understand, a person, he purchases any shares in a company, right? A share, what it reflects what? The current asset value and the fixed asset value of that company, right? A portion of it. A person, he would purchase a share for what? One out of two reasons. A person may purchase a share from a company or shares from a company with the intent of what? Listen, my intent is what? I'm going to purchase with the intent of resale. Purchase in the hoping and assuming that what? The value would go up. And if it goes up, khalas, this is what you presume and you're going to sell it. Alright? So what you do, you're actually buying with the intent of resale. So we treat that as what? An item for trade. So if you purchase the share for what? $100, right? But the intent is for what? Resale. Come now, the 27th of Ramadan, you're going to put what? The market value of that share. It may not be $100, right? It lays with the company, you would see. Right now, the market value of that share is what? 120. So this is how much you're going to put. 120 multiplied by how much shares you have, right? So this is what you do. A person, say he purchases what? He purchases shares just to receive what? Dividends quarterly or yearly. Alright? So now, how that is connected to zakah? That person, what? The dividends, if that money happens to be in his possession come the 27th of Ramadan, that would be a zakatable asset by virtue of any cash. Alright? That is one. Alright? Also, that person, understand, that share that he has, that represents any a portion of what? Ownership of the company. A company has what? Fixed shares and has what? Any current, any variable, any current shares, any form of raw material, cash, this and that. So we studied here just now, listen, fixed assets not subjected to zakah, right? But the current asset, that's subjected to zakah. So what you have to do now, you have to find out from the company the fixed asset ratio, the fixed asset to current asset ratio. If they say, listen, that every share, the fixed asset ratio to current asset ratio is what? Say 60 to 40, right? 60 to 40, 60% what? Fixed asset, 40% current asset. You're going to pay zakah on the 40%, the any value of that share, right? Now we have livestock, and this is a big livestock. They are certain what? Listen, many people would have known from the past, and we have what? Zakah forms in circulation also. You would see what? A list of what? If a person were to possess this amount of what? Goats, sheep, how much you would give in zakah? 40 goats, you give a zakah, you give one goat in zakah. A person has what? 20 what? 20 bulls, right? 30 bulls, you give one in zakah. 5 camels, you give this amount what? A sheep in zakah, and like that. Understand? These are specific nisab, right? This has nothing to do with what? Your yearly zakah, right? This is a specific what? Nisab, right? It's not the nisab of gold and silver here. Understand? And this is a specific method of rearing animals, right? This is what we call zakah as-sa'ima. Sa'ima refers to what? Those livestock that people what? Rear just for the purpose of what? Multiplying without the intent of trade and sale. And it grazes what? In a pasture, a free pasture for most of the year without you having to feed it or cut grass for it. Right? So we ask the question, right? And you could reply also, right? Think about it. You know anybody in Trinidad here that have 30 bulls, right? Mining 30 bulls, and his intent is not trade? And these bulls what? Just graze freely, without he having to what? Cut any grass, any for what? At least what? Any a good portion of the year? No. You know a man mining what? 80 what? 80 sheep. And my intent is not for sale. I just mine them so they can multiply. I like to see them and take milk from them. No. So you don't apply this type of zakat to it. Right? And this is where many people what? Right? We don't have that in Trinidad here. Right? But listen, you purchase one goat, not 40 goats. One goat you purchase with the intent of resale is a zakatable asset. You purchase one bull with the intent of resale, that one bull is a zakatable asset. Alright? So there's a little clarification over there on what? This livestock, that what? The different nisab that goes around. Right? The nisab for goat, the nisab for cattle, the nisab for camels. That is a specific any arrangement.
So things like chicken and duck and they go fall on that too?
No, chicken and duck.
No, like if you purchase them for resale, that be considered as a zakatable asset?
You purchase what? Chickens, type. Look simple, simplified, alright? And then after we go to the little more complicated one. You have a depot, right? So you purchase chickens with the intent of resale, right? So you purchase chickens with the intent of resale, coming the 27th of Ramadan, and you see how much chicken, and all is a zakatable asset. Right? The ones that what? You have in the cage, right? Still alive, ready to slaughter. The ones that you have in the freezer already parcel. The ones that you have whole, the parts, different parts that you have, all of that zakatable. Why? Because you purchase with the intent of resale. Zakatable. Right? A person may purchase what? Chickens. For example, he purchases what? Layers, 10 dozen layers. When a person purchases these what? Layers, chicks. What is his intention? Does he purchase what? These chickens with the intent of resale? Eggs, right? Understand? Understand? We're not thinking of, okay, what you're going to do afterwards, after a couple of years. For example, listen, people what? Companies, what they do, they purchase machinery, right? But in their minds, right, listen, after 5 years, I'm going to replace this machinery. After 5 years, I'm going to sell it, right, and upgrade. It still does not become a zakatable asset. You understand? So listen, you have your layers. You purchase the layers with the intent of resale. These layers are not zakatable. And also, you know what? Not zakatable? The eggs not zakatable. Right? The eggs not zakatable. All the crates are eggs that pile up not zakatable. But listen, if you were to sell the eggs and you receive the income from that, if you have that in your possession come the 27th of Ramadan, it will be under what? Cash. You purchase what? 20 cows. Right? You purchase it for what? For milk. Not for resale. Right? Your intent is for milk. So these 20 cows, not zakatable. Milk also, not zakatable. If you were to sell the milk, receive the cash, come 27th of Ramadan, it remains in your possession, yes. You paid, why, by virtue of what? Cash. I was some other good, $10. Understand? Everything what zakah, everything connected to your zakah is what? Linked to your anniversary. Right? Your zakah anniversary. We give an example here, what Khalas, using the 27th of Ramadan. This we use in class as an example. What you do before the 27th of Ramadan in acquisition of what? Wealth or dispensing of wealth, that is irrelevant. Right? That is irrelevant. You spend $10 million on the 26th of Ramadan, that has nothing to do with zakah. Come the 28th, the day afterwards, come 28th of Ramadan, you receive what? $10 million. That has nothing to do with zakah. Come the 27th of Ramadan, check and see what you have. What you have and what you owe. This is how we check zakah. So a person, listen, for Qurbani time, he purchases what? An animal with the intent of resale. Right? Is it a zakatable asset? Yes, it's a zakatable asset. But if that person's zakatable year was the month before, that has nothing to do with zakah. Buy, sell, finish, that has nothing to do with zakah. But just say what? Around that time, say what? He purchased an animal with the intent of resale. And you know what? For example, what? The first of Dhul Hijjah is his zakah anniversary. Right? That's 10 days before Eid. Right? 10 days before Eid. So that person now, midway in Dhul Qa'dah, Qa'dah is the month before, he purchased animal with the intent of what? Resale for Qurbani. Right? Purchase with the intent of resale for Qurbani. Right? Bulls, this, that, whatever, goats, sheep. And he still has some in his possession. Come the first of Dhul Hijjah. So the first of Dhul Hijjah, now look at all the animals that he has for trade. He purchased with the intent of trade. That is what zakatable. It all connects to what a person's what? Zakatable anniversary. That is why many people in Trinidad were negligent of this. I pay zakah in Ramadan. It doesn't matter when you pay zakah. What matters here now, how you receive that figure. How you come up, my zakah is what? $5,000. How you come up with that figure? How you come up with that figure of $5,000? Well, I feel to give $5,000. No, that figure must be what? Connected to a specific date. Right? You could give zakah throughout the year, that's not a problem. You could even advance your zakah before its time, and that's not a problem. Right? But your calculation would take place on a specific date. Your distribution, you have the allowance anytime, even what? Before, after. You have that allowance to what? To give, right? But to calculate to see exactly how much you have to pay, which is the obligatory amount, which is fard upon you, right? How much you have to give, that mandatory amount, you need that is a specific date, right? That is a specific date. And that is what many people were negligent of. So we need to what? If you don't have a date, from now, fix a date. Right? Fix a date, and every single year work with that. Fix what? A date in Islamic calendar, not 1st of June and 20th of December, no. In the Islamic calendar, the passing of one lunar use Islamic calendar. The 10th of what? Most people what? Who don't have a date, they fix a date in what? Ramadan. So fix a date, the 1st of Ramadan, the 10th of Ramadan. Oh, I like to give khalas, I would give in the last 10 days. Okay, my day is the 25th of Ramadan, the 27th. Fix that, and every single year, work with that. Right? Understand how you derive at the figure. Your zakatable assets, yes. Your liabilities, right? But at what point in time, what? Understand your zakatable assets, it vary. Your cash, that would vary, right? Items for trade, that would vary. So obviously what? That value here would vary. So you need to fix that date. We're looking at that at the 27th of Ramadan. That is my date. You fix your date. Your liabilities will what? Would vary also. Alright? Now, agricultural products. This also what? Is a specific type of zakah, right? It's not connected to what? Our yearly zakah. It has its own what? It doesn't even have an nisab. A person has land. He cultivates that land. He grows crops in a big way. Here we're not speaking about what you have in the back of your house, in the kitchen garden. No, we're not speaking about. A person has land. Acres of land he plants in what? In tomatoes, in corn, watermelon, like that. That person will have to give zakah upon every harvest. When you speak about harvest, okay, if that crop that he grows in what? Once for the year, that would bear. Right? He gives zakah once for the year on that, specifically on that. If that type of crop, it bears twice for the year, he would give zakah twice. Understand? Yes, understand it will take what? It may take days or weeks to reap the harvest. We're not speaking about every time, right? The crops, whenever what? The land produces crops, it produces that once for the year, gives zakah once for the year. Twice for the year, you give twice for the year. Right? There's a specific types of zakah. Ma akhrajatil ard, whatever the earth sent forth from crops and what? Vegetation. That is zakah. How much zakah are you going to give? That, as I mentioned, that different from what? The normal zakah that we give, the yearly zakah, 2.5% and nisab and this and that. And this, when you check in this zakah, I have like liabilities. But I pay this worker to spray it, and this is the medicine, and this is the fertilizer. There has no liability. You're not deducting any liabilities here. Right? How much are you going to give? How much you're going to give, it depends on what the irrigation system, right? And in Trinidad, already one type we have. If it's what? Man-made, or there's what? Human intervention, meaning what? You have to run pipes, you have to what? You have to run pipes, you have to dig trenches and this and that to bring the water in, to water it. You give what? 5%, right? In certain places, we don't have it in Trinidad. Listen, it just what? The irrigation is what? Purely by what? Rain that comes from the sky, or a big river that runs through the what? That feeds what? The area. We don't have that here in Trinidad, right? If it's like that, that second one, right, you have what? No man-made what? Intervention here with regards to irrigation system. It's purely from the rains and the rivers that flow. Then they give what? 10%. They give 10% of that harvest, right? But if what? The irrigation system over here is like what we have in Trinidad, then what? They give a less amount, which is 5%. And this has nothing to do with the zakah that we are speaking about. It's a separate type of zakah. Right? On the harvest, yeah. Right? You have the choice. You can give from the harvest itself, or you give the value of that 10%, the value of that 5%. In our case, it would be 5%. Right? Right, as you mentioned, not we have behind the house a tree, this, that, between a man have what? Acres of land in what? In crops, right? Acres of land obviously will be for sale, right? A man can eat with only 5 acres of watermelon for himself, 5 acres of tomatoes for himself. On this scale we're speaking about. Now what we have right around the house with the small little orchard garden we have, and you know, little mango tree and sapodilla and no, there's no obligatory zakah on that, right? But yes, you give optional, that is reward, but there's not obligatory there, all right? For example, we can look at these people who would plant in a big way, all right? So what you can do, listen, I mean, a person will say, well, sometimes all the produce don't sell, right? So what you can do, listen, sell, and whatever remain that not sitting and it's not rotten, it could still be utilized. Whatever what remaining, you put your 5% from that, right? Instead of what? When they get your produce, the first thing you do, well, you get 5% in zakah, and then after they try to look for sale and this and that, right? If that's difficult, listen, sell how much you can sell, and obviously some would remain, right? And before it becomes what? Any rotten or not able khalas, not suitable for what? For usage, to consume, you give your 5% from that, all right? Pension scheme, medical scheme. A person has what? A medical scheme, a pension scheme, right? He pays what? Premiums every month. Now, come the 27th of Ramadan, what are you going to do? Right? Understand here, we're not going to what the whole concept of if it jais or not jais and the interest part and whatever. Leave that aside for now, right? There are two types of what? Medical scheme or pension scheme. These schemes of what? Two types. One is what? Mandatory in nature, and the other voluntary in nature. Mandatory in nature, listen, they cut it from what? Your salary. They don't ask you, they tell you, right? They would cut a percentage from your salary. There's a mandatory what? Right? A scheme then, they would cut a percentage from your salary and it will go towards what? A pension fund or a retirement fund or some fund, right? Based on company and whatever. We have what? NIS over there with the government also, right? So if it's a mandatory in nature, right, then that has nothing to do with zakah, right? Meaning what? Come the 27th of Ramadan, you don't go in the NIS office and check how much contributions I have, right? So you pay what? You put out the zakatable asset. No, I have nothing with zakah, right? Nothing with zakah. But listen, if you were to give payoff, right, upon retirement, right, you get what? A lump sum. And that happens to be in your possession come 27th of Ramadan. Yes, it's zakat by virtue of the cash, right? The second type of scheme is what? A voluntary scheme. You open, you what? Willfully, and you what? On your own will, right? You pay voluntarily. You pay what? On your own will? Premiums to that company, right? For medical, any whatever, pension, whatever, right? So because of this one being of a voluntary nature, right? How much premiums you pay, right? Come the 27th of Ramadan, right? You check with the company how much premiums you have inside, right? That is zakatable, right? That is zakatable. Where's that? The old age pension? That's a gift. Right? So come the 27th of Ramadan, you have that, right? That is part of the zakatable asset. Right? Understand what we're speaking about? At source, the pension scheme here we're speaking about, the retirement scheme we're speaking about, until now you haven't received anything. Right? Until now you haven't received anything. Do I still have to pay zakah? We mentioned what? If it is what? A mandatory what? Scheme, it's not a zakatable asset. So you didn't check that. But if it's a voluntary scheme now, until now you haven't received, but still, your contributions, your premiums, that will be part of your zakatable asset and you'll pay zakah on it. How many percent now? 8 o'clock? 8 o'clock? Right? Understand? Zakah is levied upon what? Individuals, not organizations and companies and institutes. Alright? So listen, here in calculating, a person can calculate, okay, how much the zakat the business has to pay, but understand, you own the business. Right? You own the business. So if you check and see what, you check up the zakat for the business itself, and you see what, it is less than the nisab. And you check up your own separate, and you see what, it's less than the nisab. So you don't have to pay zakat. No, you don't work like that. If you check the business and you see what, your net zakatable asset is $20,000. Okay, $20,000 is what? That is less than the nisab. You don't have to pay zakat. And you check the other assets that you have and the liabilities that you have, and you get what? $20,000. Right? He has to pay zakah. You have to, right? He owns the business. Right? He owns the business. Yes, we just say what? The business by the business name, the business by this, the business profit, the business loss. That is you, right? You, right? So this whole, understand this whole concept of limited liability, it has no what? Basis in the Sharia, right? You have a company, limited liability, what? $1 million, right? You take loan, this and that, whatever, right? You file bankruptcy, why? You owe what? $10 million outside. Your company is what? Just, is limited to what? $1 million, right? So all you have to pay is what? $1 million. What about the next $9 million? You don't have to pay. That has no basis in the Sharia. And you have on your own now $20 million. But you know what? I don't have to pay that because my company is limited liability. No, you still owe $9 million. Right? You still have to pay for that. That has no what basis in the Sharia. And sometimes, listen, you have a company would have you could be the sole what? Proprietor, the sole what? Owner, or you can have what? Partnership, right? So based on each partner what they share in the company, right? You check your zakat like that. If it's 50-50, right? You check your zakat like that. 50% for him, 50 and like that. Zakat on deposits, down payment, we could skip that, right? Establishing ownership. We did inheritance here, right? So this is one slide from what? Right? This is one slide from the inheritance course. Your business value? How you get $1,000? Right? Understand when they say value, right? We're not looking at fixed asset. We just, when they say what? We look at the value of the business, right? In zakah, fixed assets irrelevant, right? So you have that business what? The facility itself probably what? Worth $2 million. That has nothing to do with zakah. Right, so we can pin that just like we pin I'm sorry one. We can speak about liabilities just now. Whole liabilities, the effect that has in zakah. Right, we come in here just now. But this is one point over here to establish ownership. Understand what you own, what I own. Alright, and we mentioned this in the inheritance class, and it's connected to zakah, everything connected to your hajj, everything, your qurbani, all these what monetary acts of ibadat. Your wife name in the account, right? Is she what? The owner of the account also? You all what? 50% own the account? Right? This needs to be clarified. Who given this, what? The account has what? $100,000 in it. Who paying the zakah? Zakah is obligatory upon whom? That two are we one. Okay, if it's two or you all one, okay. We see over here, 50,000 for you and 50,000 for her. So when she's checking her, understand, when you're checking zakah, you don't check zakah as a family. Right? You don't check zakah as a couple. Right? Inheritance is not like a family. Inheritance is no. Each and every individual, what he or she owns, what he or she owes. Understand? So her name in the account, no problem. Is she an owner? No. Okay, there's no problem. Right? So that has nothing to do with her then. That one has nothing to do with her. You would sort of that be part of your zakatable asset. When she's checking her zakatable asset, she would put her jewelry, she would put what cash she has otherwise, and she would not include anything from the account. Why? This is not hers. But if it is hers now, it is joint, okay, 50-50, 40-60, all these things need to be what determined, all right? Who owns what and to what extent? We have what? We have what? A trust for our child, right? Is it that, okay, he is the owner of the what? Of the money, and he would only have access to it when he reaches 18 years? Or is it that what? I am still the owner of the money, right? And when he reaches 18 years, I would transfer it, or it would be transferred. All these things need to be determined. Who owns the money now, right? You have jewelry, right? The mother wants to give the daughter the jewelry when she's going to get married, right? But until now, who owns the jewelry, right? This is where the zakat comes in. No, but my intent is to give it. I'm not wearing it at all. It there, it in a safe, it what? It locked down, right? I'm not wearing it. I don't want, that is for my daughter. No problem. But until now, it is in whose ownership, whose possession. This is where the zakat comes in, right? So that is a side note. I have money. I'm keeping it to what? To build a house for my child. I'm keeping it for the education of my child. I'm keeping it to what? To go for Hajj. That is irrelevant. What is your intent when you have money? When you have gold and silver, when you have what? Cash and currency, your intent is what? Irrelevant. What is important? Ownership. Who owns it? Right? If you own it, then it's part of your zakatable asset. The ownership is transferred, then whosoever it is transferred onto, right, that is their responsibility. Now we go into the liabilities. Alright, liabilities is what? We just finished what is zakatable asset, most of it. Now, the liabilities. Alright, this is what you're going to deduct. So what is your liabilities? Listen, that's what you owe. Right? You owe people. Right? And here now the owing, whether it be what? Individuals or what? Organizations, institutes. You own what? You owe the telephone company. You owe the gas company. You owe what? The electricity company. Right? What you owe, you're going to what? Add all of your liabilities. Alright? So now, with regards to what? Payable loans. We spoke about receivable loans just now. Receivable loans by virtue of what? A loan that you give to somebody, or you sell what? A commodity for trade until now that person hasn't paid. These are zakatable asset, receivable what? Loans. Now you have what? Payable loans. Payable in the sense of what? You owe people, you have to pay, right? So now loans or payable loans of two types. You have what? Long-term loans and short-term loans. Only short-term loans affect zakah, not long-term loans, right? People take out loans by the millions, right? And buy this, that, khalas, time for zakah. Now you're going to what? You have what? You have your whole asset here, 6 million, and you're going to minus 10 million. You would never pay zakah. Alright? You don't use what? Long-term loans has no effect on zakah. Short-term loans will affect zakah. What are short-term loans? Short-term loans are what? Those what? Loans payable within a lunar year. Loans payable within a lunar year. So all the utility bills that you have, that is monthly anyhow, 2 months, it is payable within a lunar year, right? You owe somebody money, right? Understand here? It is payable within what? A lunar year. How are you going to check that? Come 27th of Ramadan, you're going to check who you owe, right? And who those loans that are payable within what? A 12-month period. That is the amount you're going to write. So listen, you could have a long-term loan, 10 years, 5 years, right? But every single long-term loan has a short-term period. For example, listen, 12 fives what? 60. You borrow what? $60,000 and you have 5 years to pay for it. Every year, every month you have to pay an installment of what? $1,000 for what? 5 years, right? Come the 27th of Ramadan, you're checking your liabilities. Would you include the entire $60,000 as part of your liabilities? No. Why? Because what is payable, what is demanded from you, required from you within 1 lunar year, 12 months, is just $12,000. So that's how much you're going to put as your liability. $12,000, right? So only short-term loans will affect zakah, not long-term loans, right? Somebody working for you, you have workers, right? You have workers. Come 27th of Ramadan, hey, you have wages to pay people. That is part of your liability, right? You have what? All these bills. Come 20. Understand the one that you paid already. You pay only 25th of Ramadan. That has nothing to do with that has nothing to do with zakah. We speaking about, listen, 27th of Ramadan, right? The bills are the one that overdue, the one until now I haven't paid, right? The one that is what pending. This is what you're going to add and deduct from here. It's zakatable asset. You have tuition fees, right? School fees, utility bills. Listen, you get a speeding ticket. You get a speeding ticket, all the taxes, all of these things are what? Liabilities. You add it over here. And also, listen, I have zakah for the last 2-3 years that until now I haven't paid all. Right? That is also a liability. That is a debt. You include that in your liabilities. Right? So what? You have your zakatable assets. You have your liabilities. After you deduct all your liabilities from your zakatable assets, you get what you call net zakatable asset. Check and see now. The value, it equates or exceeds the nisab, you have to pay zakah. It is less than the nisab, you don't have to pay zakah. But it doesn't necessarily mean that what you could receive zakah, right? And we explain that. Here where the non-zakatable asset comes in now, right? A person paying zakah, understand? Zakah is an act of ibadah. Zakah is an act of ibadah. So what does that mean? Hey, you need intention, right? You need intention. A person intends to what? He makes intention, zakah is fulfilled. Right? Otherwise, a person can give beside his zakah. Understand? His zakah is just 2.5%. Beside it, 2.5% is what? 97.5%. He can give from that also. But what's going to differentiate between what? An optional charity that he gave or a zakah, a compulsory any charity that he gave? His intention. If you stand now it's time for what? Isha. Past Isha time. Right? Now it's time for Isha. If a person stands now and perform 4 rakah, would that be considered Salatul Isha for him? And if afterwards he performs the next 4 rakah, would that be considered Salatul Isha? So what's going to differentiate between what? His 4 rakah nafil and 4 rakah Salatul Isha? His intention. Why? Because the time allows that person to perform, right? Fard and nafil at the same time, right? That person in his world, what is what? That allowance yet to give what? Obligatory what? Charity, and at the same time you can also give what? Voluntary charity. But what distinguishes one from the other? A person's intention, right? So a person has intention when he gives zakah. That is what. Also, what would also count? A person, what he does in separating his money, right? He separates what? My zakah for this year is what? $10,000. So what? He separates $10,000. That put it in the office drawer there, or put it in this pocket, or put it in that specific account, right? So at that time you have the intention. Now it is not necessary that a person what? Every time he gives someone he has the intention. No. You could give even though you don't have intention, it would still be valid. Why? Because the time of separating your money, that was what? The intention was made, this money here is for zakah, right? Also, it is not a condition that the person who receives your zakah, he what? He knows that this is zakah. You don't have to tell him this is zakah, right? But what is important, that the person who receives your zakah is the eligible recipient of zakah. He doesn't have to know. So most of the time, okay, we know who cannot receive, we know who can receive zakah, so we give. But sometimes we have a little doubt. Hey, I want to give this person zakah, but I'm not too sure if he can receive. So you have no choice but to ask him, right? And you can receive zakah, he have money. Yeah. Right? But you don't sit on the class to know, okay, if you can receive zakah. All you know is what? You don't have to pay zakah. That's all you know, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that a person who doesn't have to pay zakah could receive. So when he asks you now, can you receive zakah? In your head now, well, listen, I can't receive, so I don't have to pay, so I can receive, right? So The person paying the zakah doesn't know if he could receive, and the person worse than that, the person receiving the zakah, he don't know if he could receive. That's intention, right? This what the concept of what advancing zakah is very important, right? This will come in very what? Very handy, right? Advancing zakah. What do you mean to advance zakah? Huh? We keep on speaking about the zakah anniversary, 27th of Ramadan. This is where you're going to check and see how much you have to pay, and then pay anytime afterwards. A person can what? Advance his zakah. What does that mean? You can give zakah in advance of your zakah anniversary. You could give zakah before even your zakah anniversary comes, right? Somebody come to you in need. Your zakah anniversary is what? The 27th of Ramadan. Somebody come to you in the month of Rajab, right? The month of Muharram. He's in need, right? And you are, and that, not you, but listen, that person is such that this is all he just gives zakah. He don't give anything more than that, right? So this person in need. So you tell the person, boy, my zakah anniversary is 27th of Ramadan, you know. And you come, yeah, you could advance that zakah. Give it in advance, right? Give it in advance. For example, listen, you estimate that what your zakah would be what? Say for example 10,000 for the year, right? So what happened? You give that person what? $10,000, right? But what you need to do, come 27th of Ramadan, you have to actually check. So if 27th of Ramadan comes now, when it comes and you check and your zakah is what? $12,000. You already advanced 10, so you have what? Just 2 to give. Understand? Opportunities may arrive. Time may arise, and listen, you might, this is a good cause. This, you want to help all this brother? No. But yours zakah anniversary is what? 2-3 months down or 5 months down. That is okay. You could advance your zakah, right? Even at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he collected what? Advanced zakah from what? Sahaba by 3-4 years in advance, right? So here now, if you give what? $10,000 in advance, come 27th of Ramadan, you must connect to this date, even though you're advancing your zakah. Come 27th of Ramadan, you check in, right? And when you check now, hey, my zakah is just what? $8,000, and how much you give? Yeah? 10,000. So you have 2,000 what? For the next year, right? 2,000 what? Already inside, right? So this is what, listen, a person in distributing, you have plenty what allowances and leeway in distributing. The calculation is what? Restricted to a specific date. You could what? Listen, every single month you could be given zakah. Every month you're given zakah, right? Record it. Advancing your zakah every month, right? It's better to advance your zakah than what? To keep your zakah and let it run for a whole year afterwards. Understand that better? Listen, so come the 27th of Ramadan, what people do? They check the money, right? My zakah is what? $12,000. So what you do? Every month you give $1,000, right? So after a whole year you pay your zakah. Khalas. That is jaiz, that is okay, right? But what is better than that? Listen, when something is due to the poor, you give them one time, don't hold it back, right? What is better than that? You advance what? You advance that what? That $12,000 every month you give, right? And come 27th of Ramadan, you check and see actually what are the deficiencies, you top it up, and if it's a surplus, it will what? It will continue to the upcoming years. Asking some good questions, right? Important question, right? Zakah, understand, if you trade in what? You trade in what? Clothes, right? You trade in animals, buying and selling animals. You trade in what? You have a grocery. This is what you're buying and selling, right? So your zakah is from the item itself, right? The zakah is what? From the item that you're trading itself, right? Doesn't necessarily have to be cash, right? Cash may be better for the poor person. He can utilize it however he wants to utilize it in the best way possible, right? But you can give from what? The items that you trade, right? Even though you're not trading in items, you can give what? Items of need. You need grocery items, food items, right? But in this now, listen, you have your cash, and sometimes you have to think about the poor people too, right? You buy a hamper, everybody buy a hamper, right? and what this poor person collect about 10 hampers, right? And then the next day now, that poor person what? Selling the hampers. Why? Because they have what? 10 bag of dal, 10 bag of rice, and you know what? I had to pay the electricity bill, right? I had to buy what? I had to buy this, I had to buy that, right? So this is where we have to look and see what is better for the poor, right? If you're trading in certain items, okay, you can give it, but if you what? You have the cash, right? You give the cash, unless what? Certain people like what? Uncle Nizam mentioned the other day, hey, if you give him cash, I know what he's going to do with it, right? So it differ, the recipient, who the recipient is, alright? So that is one. The second is what? Zakah is an act of ibadah, right? So if it's an act of ibadah, that what the recipient must be what? A Muslim. The recipient must be a Muslim. Understand? It doesn't mean that when I start watching my heart, I'll stop, right? It doesn't mean that, listen, you don't help non-Muslims. No, it doesn't mean that. Listen, who you can give, right? Simple. Who you can give, who you cannot give. Just look and see, okay, who you cannot give, and beside these people, you can give anybody else. One is Muslim, right? And they have what? They're poor. You cannot give what? The what? The usul. Usul mean what? Your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, however high in the hierarchy. No. Right? Furu', you can't what? Just look at the straight line here. You can't give what? Your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, however low in the hierarchy. Right? You can give what? Over to the side. You give what? Your aunt, your uncle, your sister, your brother, your niece, your nephew. You can give all these people here. Right? So why you can't give your mother and your children? Wala hawla wala quwwata billah. You give them, these people, they what? They have a right to your 95.7%. These people what? If they need, they have rights to what? Your 97.5%, not the 2.5%. That is for what? That is for cleansing purposes. This is actually the filth in your wealth you have to give. That is not for your parents and your children. You give them from your 97.5%, right? If they're poor and they need, right? So, you're not allowed to give what? This line up, yani, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and what? Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, however, low in the hierarchy. Anybody else you can give. And one exception also in the Hanafi madhab, you cannot give your spouse. Right? I'm giving it this, right? And tomorrow, you know, things real hard, and can't break down, and I need it. No, khalas. I think, listen, in zakah, you give, right, to someone that the benefit doesn't return back to you. Right? You give your new wife what? Zakat $10,000, right? So she happy. But you smart man, you know what you're doing, right? Next, after a few days of coming in the month, time to make grocery and time to pay bills, and I really have no money. You pay that, you do, right? So no, it don't work like that, right? So we did advance in zakah. Just I want to stop here, right? How to calculate nisab, this, that, recipient of zakah, right? Right, so inshallah, we'll stop here, right? Probably next year we're planning better to have at least 3 or 4 sessions, right? But most of it covered, right? So may Allah Azza wa Jal reward everyone for their time and their effort. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us the understanding of Islam, the understanding of Deen, and give us the tawfiq to practice whatever we have learned, right, with regards to his Deen. Jazakumullah khairan. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha